So if everybody's ready to go, we'll get this kick started. We've got about a half hour here. So hello and welcome to today's edition of the ServiceNow Ask the Expert series. My name is Roz Morville, and I'm a product marketing manager in risk and compliance for ServiceNow. In this session, we're going to dive into supply chain resilience, and we're going to learn about a new integration from our partner Interos and how actionable insights through risk intelligence and continuous monitoring capabilities can be realized in your own vendor risk program. This can make you help you make better supplier decisions through broader and deeper insights into your supplier's financial, operational, ESG, geopolitical restrictions and regulations, and cyber risk. And we're planning on going for about 30 minutes, as I said. And before I introduce you to the speakers, just let me remind you of some of the upcoming sessions that you can register for. So throughout March and into April, if you want to just progress to the next slide, we've got a few risk topics that we're going to allow you to choose from. And we're really excited to bring you some new sessions on policy and compliance management, risk management, privacy, and another session in a few weeks on vendor risk management specifically. And you can register for all of these sessions in the ServiceNow community shortly. They'll be coming up there, and you can just search for the sessions, and we'd be happy to have you join those as well. And with that, I'll introduce our speakers. So many of you may be familiar with Jorge. Jorge Garcia has been in the security and risk space for several years. He served in a variety of roles with a large array of clients, providing security, identity, third-party risk, operational risk solutions to his customers. And as one of the really early adopters of SOAR tools, Jorge strongly believes that workflow can be embedded in all aspects of security and risk to help you reduce attack vectors and mitigate risks faster. And he's really been succeeding to that end as the principal product manager here at ServiceNow for our VRM products. So welcome, Jorge. And joining us from Interos are Robin Karen and David Taylor. David is the Senior Director of Strategic Solutions for Interos. And in this role, he leads the company in solutions consulting, business intelligence, and IT strategy. Robin is the Vice President of Alliances for Interos, and he's mainly responsible for Interos' channels and alliances globally. And he has the mandate to create great value for our mutual clients. So I'm delighted to pass this to Robin, who's going to dig in and talk about Interos and tell us what they bring to the market. So Robin, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Roz. Thank you, everybody on the call. Quick kickoff here about the company. First, actually, thank you, ServiceNow, for being our customer. Thank you, ServiceNow, for being our vendor, our supplier, our go-to-market partner, and our investor. So we've got the full suite of possible relationships there. Past couple of years, I suppose even the past couple of months, you can't be awake without seeing various dimensions of risk, whether that being a global pandemic that seems to be resurging in certain parts of the world right now, or cyber attacks, or obviously geopolitical unrest. So the need for visibility into the resilience to the supply chain, I think, it's a home point that we need to be able to anticipate and then mitigate risk. Next slide. So how do we help? So Jennifer Bisegli, our founder and CEO, started Interos in 2005, overnight success. First 14 years was a consulting company helping the US government understand supply chain resilience. During those 14 years, people were performing searches and research and analysis to understand, discover, and ultimately define the taxonomy of risk that now, since 2018, when we had an investment from Kleiner Perkins, we've translated human effort into technology using artificial intelligence and machine learning data based on the data set created by the humans in those consulting engagements. And now the platform is performing those same features and capabilities to find areas that infer risk. Last slide. So what do we do? Well, using AI, we map the supply chains of the world, the relationships between companies, the buyer-supplier relationship, not limited to, also competitors, investors, Russian oligarchs that buy a chunk of a company that you need to know about for restricted parties and sanctions. So we're mapping relationships today. Around 350 million companies are mapped in our relationship graph. Two, we monitor all and every one of those entities across, as Roz said, a holistic view of risk across 6 pillars. David will show you more details. And we provide, therefore, the platform to monitor and model what if this happened, where is their concentration, where is their risk, and what can I do about it? And ultimately, the integration with ServiceNow allows you to do something about it. So we're a platform of insights that, with integration to ServiceNow, allows us to have action taken through the workflow, through configuration and mapping into controls that ultimately you can mitigate and do something about the risks that the Interos platform provides. Relationships, monitor on a continuous basis, and integrate with ServiceNow to take action. That's it from me. Over to Jorge.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you everyone for attending. So there's two trends that we're seeing in the market from a ServiceNow perspective, amongst various number of ones. But one is a reliance on content providers or risk intelligence feeds to start automating the process of understanding and ultimately mitigating risk within your supply chain. And then the second that we're seeing is a broader risk landscape, where in the past or historically, our customers were assessing and trying to understand informational security risk. They are broadening that to understand ESG, resiliency, geopolitical, reputational, financial. And so what this integration does to us, ServiceNow, and to our customers, and why it's so exciting, is because rather than having to integrate and go out and try to find 6 different companies that give you these risk factors, by this, through this integration, we actually make it easy on me, right? Because I only deal with one partner, but it also makes it easier on our customers to make sure that we can incorporate all of these different data points through your third-party risk management process, right? And so if you are solely interested in cyber, but are growing your program to now incorporate financial risk, then this is a great opportunity for you to, or a great starting point for you to be able to do those things. The third trend, and something that you'll see from this partnership in the future, and something that makes me excited, is the fact that there's also a need to understand concentration risk, as well as your overall more holistic supply chain risk, right? And mapping that supply chain is a large undertaking that most of our customers just don't have a good grasp on, right? They have a good grasp on their third parties. They have somewhat of a grasp on their fourth parties. But once you go beyond that, it is very, very difficult to manage and even identify who those vendors and who those suppliers are. And so through this partnership and through the ability of mapping the nth tiers to our supplier records or company records or vendor records, we will provide with visibility into concentration risk. We'll provide visibility into resiliency, right? Because if one of your vendors in your supply chain goes down, how would that impact you and how would that impact your customers? And then, as Robin alluded to, right, if there's any geopolitical sanctions, things of that nature, we'll also provide visibility into it. So this integration and this partnership is extremely exciting, and I think it's going to provide a lot of benefit to our customers. With that said, David, I'll pass it off to you. Just show us a demo.
Great, thanks, Jorge. And I am quickly going to stop sharing and then reshare my screen. Very good. And everybody should be able to see a dashboard page. First off, I want to kind of talk a little bit about Interos, what it is that we do to kind of layer in on what Robin said, and also highlight some of the capabilities within the platform and how that ties into action within ServiceNow and really springboards that automation. What you're viewing here is a demo sandbox of my environment. And to Robin's point around mapping, monitoring, and modeling the overall supply chain, our customers provide us their direct tier ones, third parties. That's what you'll reference here at the tier 1 table over on the kind of bottom left-hand side of that card. By providing that information, because Interos discovers relationships based off of publicly available data, commercially available data, data we buy, data we procure, data that we pick up within the news realm as well, we're able then to take those tier 1 relationships, so tier 1 equals third party, and expand that based off of our database, our data lake itself, into tier 2 and tier 3. And that means fourth and fifth party. So to Jorge's point, visibility down in the sub tiers are typically very minimal in traditional standards, but being able to leverage the data at our fingertips, that Interos truly believes this as a big data problem, that we're able to then highlight relationships in the sub tiers. We score the ecosystem from a 0 to 100 scale. So you'll see here that this is a 71, and then you'll see that the higher the number, the better. So green, red, yellow, green, and then the lower number would be going towards that red risk. We also, in that middle card, look at a multi-factor view of risk. So not just cyber, not just finance, but we look at operations, cyber, ESG, geopolitical, finance, restrictions. So the data we buy and procure from public domains applies to not only relationships identification, but also to multi-factor risk assessment. And I'll get into that methodology and ontology to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. And then lastly, over on the far right, our customers use us to segment and create groups, whether it's by product line or line of business or program or whatever that might be, so that then these can be filterable actions for me to ask questions of the data. Things like, for this particular procurement process bid, do I have any weak financial performers in the sub tiers? Or for this particular group of cloud hosting providers, look out to the fourth and fifth party and see if anybody has a high cyber risk, as an example. This gives us situational awareness and visibility into the relationship so that we can proactively mitigate and work with ServiceNow to assess and automate around what that call to action will be. Now, if I scroll down, Robin hit a really good point around the monitoring aspect. So we map, we build out multi-factor risk assessments, and we continuously monitor. So not only from the public domain around data coming into the platform support relationships and multi-factor risk, we also listen for key classifiers across all of our domains so that when a warehouse fire occurs or a cyber breach, a ransomware attack, a bankruptcy occurs in that public domain, we're able to then pick that up, append it to an entity, and alert you to tell you, hey, in tier 3, there has been a cyber breach, and this is how you're connected to it. So that when our customers go look into the details of see the impact, they can quickly go in and identify the risk concentration points and use that for action and mitigation. We also pick up relationships on this as well. So if we see announcements of partnerships or joint ventures or dissolved relationships, we pick this up in the public domain as well and use that to append and round out our graph to identify those additional relationships. Now, I want to pivot from this and actually jump into a profile screen of a supplier. So I mentioned that tier 1 suppliers are third parties. They're loaded into the system. So let's just for this use case talk about, Cisco is a supplier of a company running Interos as an example. It's a third party. For each one of these entities, we actually score across multi-factor risk. So here I can see that Cisco is actually a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3, because as you can imagine, it's hyper connected between other relationships of businesses as well. And then we actually score across these various risk factors. The way our scoring methodology works is it allows you to see the risk factor score, 0 to 100, it coupled with the company I score. So what's the overall score of this entity? At any point, I can jump into further details of, as an example, cyber for Cisco in this type of use, and I can dive further into what we define as sub-factors. So what are we pulling in not only from a country level detail, because oftentimes, especially things like in operations and geopolitical, country level information is very ripe to predict and show you risks that happens within regions, typically not out there on the firm level. But when we're looking at cyber, we also have the firm level detail of things that we might get from like DNS security or data loss or threat intelligence. And as I go further in the details of this analysis of a vendor as it pertains to a particular risk factor, I can get down to the most granular level of the attribute and see for each one of these attributes, whether it's phishing sites or C2 server, one of our premium support or premium models, data sources here in this case is coming and informing us from risk recon. So that's an example of the way to be able to assess risk as it pertains to a particular factor, but I can also do that across all of these factors to dive further into country level risk and firm level detail as well. Now, that's the modeling piece, the 0 to 100, what incorporates from the source to the score that shows me visibility at a particular supplier or vendor in question. The next piece are the relationships. Again, I'm just looking at one entity. So I can actually start from that business itself, and based off of the graph database that Interos has, look downstream. Who are their suppliers based off of what Interos knows that's available within the sources that we're procuring? And I can see that as I scroll through, each one of these vendors have different scores on them as well. And I can jump into their profile pages just like I did with Cisco. And then I can even see 2 hops away as well, and the connection between tier 1 and tier 2. Where it becomes extremely powerful is when I'm able to even then take this to the next level, where I can flip this around and say, based off of this integration and view, where am I connected to entities, and where is Cisco within the tiers as it pertains to my ecosystem? So this is a tier 1 supplier. Again, that means third party. And if something were to occur, how connected am I to Cisco systems, and through whom? So now the days of asking an assessment of all vendors to fill out the same information, I could get very hyper focused on, through ServiceNow, trigger action about this assessment for these types of, for these vendors, because I know relationships exist. Now, that's one vendor. That's one supplier in this ecosystem, where we have thousands of tier 1 suppliers that then we want to map and extend relationships. So then when I take this to another level and I look at things like geographic concentration, I'm starting from the third parties, so the tier 1s, and I can see here that I have 26 tier 1s in this ecosystem. And then if I begin to start layering in these filters for further visibility, I can say, you know what, based off those tier 1s, show me all the tier 2s. And then even more so, show me all the tier 3s. And you'll see that based off that initial set of information, I can see the footprint of my connections to businesses worldwide and the various different areas I might be concentrated within key regions of the world. As we all know, things going on within the region of Ukraine today, I'm able to quickly be able to jump in and see, you know, of my relationships out to the tier 3 level, you know, where am I connected into key areas of the world that might have particular conflict going on that could impact me, or shutdowns that might occur because another wave of COVID, or operational dependencies based off of capacity limitations within region. By doing this, I'm able to then really get focused into key areas and key regions, and I can even further refine this by the groups I've defined, as well as key industries to focus on. So that gives us some idea into geographic concentration, and I can always get to a subset list of those suppliers that are within region. Now, that's one way of showing geographic concentration and relationship interconnectivity. Another way of defining this is what we define as the relationship visualization. What you're seeing here is a breakdown of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, sort of in those each orbits kind of as they work out. They're color coded based off of risk. You can see over on the right-hand side of the scale, which we had it set on. And right now I'm looking at the overall I score, but I can focus just on finance or just on restrictions, geopolitical or ESG. And this allows me to get further into the details of key areas of risk. But at this time, what I'm asking is, for the score across all of my relationships, color code by risk, also show me, you know, based off of the size of that node, how many buyers and suppliers, how many connections do I have to this particular entity? Now, based off this high risk, I then can select the entity itself and jump in and see that I'm hyper connected through tier 2s, through tier 1s, back to me as an organization, and dive once again, just like I did for Cisco, into that supplier profile and see how I'm connected to this entity. So this truly gives me visibility into the sub-tiers to allow for streamlined visibility and proactive assessments. Now, being cognizant of time, what does all this mean to take action upon? Well, when I toggle over now to ServiceNow, I'm able to identify the information that is being pulled in from Interos. So not only looking at the overall dashboard of all the companies that through our connector with ServiceNow are being monitored and updated within the ServiceNow VRM module. But then also jump into the key areas and key suppliers, such as that Cisco, like we were defining, and see exactly what Interos is saying about this entity itself, the scores that are being used to rank them. I actually can dive back into Interos by opening the Interos and deep linking back to the supplier page, where I can then look at the sub-tier visibility and events being monitored. And what this really means next is all that information and all the data around risk and relationships and information that is at my fingertips, I can then leverage it to create automation and workflow based off of these normalized scores that might be augmented with additional sources in the ServiceNow side, and take action and proactively send assessments based off of this risk. I'll pause there. Jorge, would you like to chime in on anything I might have missed?
Yeah, so one thing that is important to note here is this only highlights what we called our classic UI. But as some of you may be aware, we've completely revamped our user interface and our user experience. We've created user-specific or persona-driven workspaces. And so if you are a vendor risk manager, you are a supplier relationship manager, you're a procurement manager, and you want to be able to ingest this information, you can still do so from this view, but we also have created, as I said, a persona-based workspace where much more modern, and specifically addressing risk and supplier use cases.
Very good. Thanks, Jorge. Robin, I know you're monitoring the chat. Anything that we would like to cover?
So we have, does it contain vendors attestation reports like SOC 1 and SOC 2? I think that's probably a Jorge answer more than us.
Yeah, so that's a question for Interos. So we are looking at are we able to get some of that information from other partners as well, right? Whether it's best practices, questionnaires, or certifications, but Interos, maybe that's a question for you as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, David.
Yeah, so we constantly, procure data and identify information. So as that pertains to things like cyber, as for instance, we pull in information from risk recon, so we solve that threat intelligence and identification at that point. We're working on certifications that if they're published out there that we can append to an entity as well as part of our definition going forward. If that is something that is stored, as well as potentially even a certification on a vendor inside of ServiceNow, we can obviously marry the two.
Thank you. Yeah, I was referring to the report itself, so thank you, well held.
Yep.
Second question is, how many vendors? We support today about 350 million companies across 425 million company locations. So your question is, if we cannot find our supplier, what should we do? I'm hoping it's pretty rare because there's not that many companies, more than 350 million in the world of any size. But let us know if there's something that you don't find in the platform. We have premium support and folks that know how to solve that problem pretty well. It's quite rare, but if it happens, we will help you out. And they were the two questions that we had. Oh, one more. Here we go. The question is, I think the question's about licensing, so didn't come up.
I actually saw a couple of others as well. Can I control what notifications I get based on the type of risk that's most important to my company?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I highlighted a little bit about the event monitoring piece on that dashboard component, but you can also subscribe to alerts and monitoring per domain based off of groups. So exactly that. I can create a group and say, you know what, these are cloud hosting providers. I want to monitor this for cyber versus these are critical tier 1 suppliers that I want to monitor for financial solvency and bankruptcy and things along those lines. So I can pick and choose through a preference center around what to monitor and how to consume those alerts.
And you're right, Robin, there was an additional question about how much does it cost? And I think that's a two-part question for both of us to answer.
It is. So I'll talk about Interos. It's a licensed commercial platform. It's a SaaS product. We reside on AWS. And effectively, it's driven by the number of third parties that you wish to continuously monitor and score and integrate back to ServiceNow. The integration pipe per se doesn't have a separate cost to it, but you do license. And of course, you license ServiceNow as well, I'll defer to Roz on that.
Yeah, no problem. I can just take this. It's available immediately for download for free, as Robin said, in the ServiceNow store. So definitely, we're not putting additional cost just based on your licenses for each of the products.
And I should point out, so we license based on the number of third parties. The platform already has tens of hundreds of millions of fourth and fifth. There's no license fee associated with the extended supply chain. That's included, but by virtue of having that visibility to the fourth and fifth parties and even beyond.
And I think following on that train, is there a way to research a new supplier that's not in my specific supply chain?
Great question. So you seed the instance with your direct tier 1 supplier, so the third parties, but we also have a search capability across all of the 350 million that Robin mentioned. So I can quickly search, I can sort by industry, I can sort by country, identify the exact entity I want, and I can subscribe to that entity and add it to any group or ecosystem that I choose. So ad hoc search as well as bulk loading of suppliers.
Great. So I think we can jump back to the slides. If any more questions come in, we can continue to answer those, but we are coming up against our half hour, so I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of respecting people's time today as well. But there are some additional resources that we can put up there for you to link to if you're interested in learning more specifically about risk, about ServiceNow VRM. Obviously, the community is a great place to go. And we do post all of our Ask the Expert sessions on YouTube. So if you're interested in this or another session, they're available on YouTube as well. So I think we can just, as we said, if you want to get started today, it's immediately available for download. And if you need to contact Interos, both the general email contact for Interos is there for partners@interos.ai, or Robin was kind enough to share his email address for any specific questions as well. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you, David, Robin, and Jorge for the great session. Really powerful solution. And we really hope to see all of you again soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much.